are you? What it do? What it do? I am so glad to be back in the house with you. I'm Wendy Torres, one of your co-hosts for the Mentor Mentee podcast, and here we are with season 2. Emil, how are you, sir?
Hey y'all. I'm good. Happy Tuesday. We here on a new day, same time. It feels a little different, but it feels great to be back in this space with you.
Yes, it does. Are you so? I'm so glad you're speaking to me. I'm glad.
I'm speaking directly to you, and our favorite train is back, of course.
It's okay. It's okay. I have trains too. So listen, it's a live podcast, ladies and gentlemen. You know how this goes.
Whatever
Anything goes.
happens,
Whatever
whatever
happens,
happens,
happens.
please check in. We want to say hello. We missed y'all. We missed y'all. We missed y'all. But we're going to get straight into it. Wendy, how have you been?
Oh goodness. Okay, so listen, I have been, I've had my days, good days, and I've had some good days. I've had some. Y'all, I can't sing. I'm just playing. Okay. No, I've had some very interesting times since the last time we all saw you. I mean, clearly we had the election was finally certified. We had an insurrection. All of those crazy things happened. The
We had
world.
a runoff.
Yes, that we won.
Yes, we had an inauguration.
And and then we had life happen at the same time, but all in all, I am here, I am good, and I am excited to be starting our second season of our podcast today.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's been January was a long month. So if that tell you anything about how the year is about to be, hold on tight for 2021, because we felt every day of the 31 days in January. I'm an Aquarius, and we entered the age of Aquarius. So shout out to all the Aquarius out there. I know we are getting our behinds tore up by the age of Aquarius right now, wherever you may be in that. But it's going to be great, because when we get out on the other side, we are going to be the people we said we were always going to be. So it's worth it. Back in the A for the year, so things are great. I get to spend a lot of time with friends that I haven't seen in a couple of years, so that has been very special. Life has done some things to Wendy and I that has made us come really close together, more close together than we thought. It just it keeps happening, but all is well. We still got our health. We still have each other. We still have family and friends, and we got y'all. So happy Black History Month, right?
Yes, right. So, but as we talk about Black History Month, so you are speaking to me.
I'm speaking to you.
Okay, so listen, ladies and gentlemen, you guys know all last season, every time we did the check-in, I would always have a story about my workouts. Normally it was on a Wednesday, and Wednesdays are supposed to be my off days. I no longer have Wednesdays off. They are not optional. Anymore. However, I also had the great honor of having the Emil Thomas come and work out with me at Effect Fitness, and with my trainer Shayon Green. How was it? How'd you like that? How was that workout for you? How'd that work for you?
Y'all, it was an experience. It was one of those experiences that you feel for days to come. It was one of those experiences where it just lingers. It's it's like a bad hangover that you just can't get rid of. Except it's not in your stomach, it's in your legs, and so moving everywhere is a challenge at the moment. But it's okay. It's okay. I enjoyed it. We did it with a small group. It was great. We had a good afternoon afterwards. But y'all, I'm going to give it to everyone over there at Effect Fitness, because those are some soldiers. Those are some warriors. If you want to go to war with somebody, I would run there first and ask for their assistance, because Shayon does magic to the bodies. And he don't care how you feel, as is what I learned. He don't care.
No cares.
At all. So thank you. I kept my promise. I said I was going to check it out when I came, and Wendy wasted no time. As soon as I was back, she scheduled that thing.
I sure did.
Yeah, you
And
sure
look,
did.
and we will go again. So, but that was so. I'm glad you came, and shout out to all of the angels that came and hung out with us. Uh, that was a good day. It was a good day for us. It was very therapeutic. So, like, as we get ready to move and talk about our topic for today, I just want to say, especially as we're talking about Black history and we're talking about Black folks and we're talking about being Black and the Black experience in America, let me say this: you need to care and check in on your mental health. If you're not working out, if you're not going to therapy, if you're not checking watching what you're eating, if you as Black people in this here America, United States of America, your mental health is very important. You need to take it seriously, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. You guys need to take care of yourself, and I do that through working out. And so just take care of yourselves, because look, being Black is exhausting.
Princess said, nope, I'm gonna take the hangover. Come on, Princess.
She said she's not doing the workout.
No, she said she ain't doing the workout. She's taking the hangover.
Yeah, we'll do the hangover after the fact.
Oh, 2 times. Okay, that's why I can never win around you. That's why I can never win around you, because there's a way to do both always. So let's get into it. It's Black History Month, and we're gonna talk about the things that we don't talk about.
Okay.
So the first thing I want to talk about is the idea of Black history and where it came from in our individual lives. So when was the first time that you heard about Black history, and what was your introduction to it?
So the idea of Blackness, Black history, the contributions of Africans and African Americans has been a part of my entire life. My mother is an educator just like I am. And so we had a great big library in our home, and that library was full of books about African Americans, Black inventors and Black authors, Black encyclopedias, things that African Americans had contributed to the United States of America. So I have 2 stories that I will share about my experience with Black history. When I was in high school, my parents moved. When white flight happened, we flew. So when we lived in DeKalb County, and the neighborhood started changing, we moved to Gwinnett County, and I found myself being the only African American teenager in a subdivision of over 100 homes. That is a true story. Wow. I went to a high school that only had 48 Blacks in it, and I was one of 7 in my graduating class. And the school had never had a Black history program. In my junior year, myself and a senior, her name was Audrey. Darn, I can't think of Audrey's last name right now. She and I got together. We both were in chorus, and we decided to put on our own Black history program. And so the African American students of the school, we stayed after school for over a month. We wrote our own scripts. We learned poems. We learned songs, and we put on a Black history program for the community after school. Now that ended up being for our parents. Right, mm-hmm. For those parents of those 48 African American students, but that was the first Black history program that high school, Shiloh High School, in Gwinnett County had ever had. When I went on to teach, when I became a teacher, that's what I did. I taught in the classroom for over 18 years, and 12 of those 18 years, I was the person that put on the Black history programs. I put on the first Black history program at Pebblebrook High School when I came there, and I did that until Grant Shalin, and Evelyn White took those over through the PA program, which they should have been doing in the first place. The PA program should have been doing in the first place, not them. But so that is my experience with Black history, was making sure that students that I taught felt connected. When I taught in Fayette County, I did the Black history program every year. One year I did it based on stepping, because one of the teachers asked me, is that like clogging? So that's what she asked me. So we did everything about HBCUs, what it meant, the Black college experience. That's what that year's Black History program was about. Even though I'm not even Greek, but I just needed those students to know that connection for themselves. So yeah, I even when I minister, I teach like that was one of the first engagements I would get. People would always ask me to come out in February. I would be booked every February to teach about Black history in the church because Moses' wife was Black.
Preach. Didn't you used to do your one-person show too in February in the classroom?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes. So what about you? What about you?
Yeah, it's so the one thing I will say is I grew up in a very diverse atmosphere. A lot of Latinos, a lot of Black people, some white people, Asian, from the New York when we were in New York, and then we came down here and it was very Black where we were living. And TAP was a very urban school. And then Pembroke was always a very urban school.
Hey, Winona, I'm so glad you could be here with us tonight.
Hey. And so for me, Black history was really introduced down here, but it was introduced in terms of slavery and like everything that Black people overcame in relation to slavery, which is a very white, that's a very white version to talk about, right? The narrative is very white to base it off of slavery as if Black people only existed for that cause and for that time period. And that everything they overcame is based off of that. It wasn't until Pembroke when I started to do the Black history programs there that it became a time of celebration. And so I started to look forward to Black history as a time to actually dive into our history and celebrate the things that we have created, the things that actually spoke to us, right? So we had singing. I would do we did the seven creations.
Yeah, James Weldon Johnson's poem, The Creation. See how I remember that? That's crazy. That was 2012, and that's what I remember the poem he recited.
And I would do it
his recitation, excuse me.
Yeah, and I would do it every year, and that was my favorite part, to be able to act out a sermon, which was very creative because we would add movement and we would bring a chorus of actors a part of it. So it really like showed all of the beauty that we actually were. And then from there, I think my goal was then to start to be a part of that thing. So how can I be a part of the legacy of Black history, and what can I offer, or what can I do for myself? And so that for me is my element of Black history every year.
Yeah, so Winona was reminded me that I actually did Black history programs for my churches as well. So like that's a very big the part of who I am as a person, and not just as an educator, but making sure that I could try to find a nuance, not just the mainstream. I mean, obviously want to talk about the mainstream people, but what is a different segment of our community that needs to be celebrated? We've been relegated to second-class citizenship for so long. And people don't realize how much of who we are is a part of mainstream culture. So I want people to know the history of where those things come from. Where does stepping come from? Where does corn rolling your hair come from? Where does the Divine Nine come from? Where does all American music come from? It comes from the slaves. It comes from slave spirituals. Where does the construction in homes come from? Like the biggest thing, and I know one of the things that's the most fascinating for me, I want people to know, because you can drive through Atlanta right now and see a home, if it has not, an older home, has not been bulldozed over, especially in the Moreland Avenue area and where the Beltline is over by Krog Street Market. If you ever, in Alabama and in any cemetery, if you ever see a building that has bricks and there's holes in the bricks and it looks like a pattern. So now you might, to the naked eye, it looks like maybe it's just old and that there's bricks missing. Pay very close attention, because if there's a pattern of 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, that is a pattern, and that means that that home is a safe house, was a safe house for the Underground Railroad. You can see those same holes in the floorboards of old churches and homes. Those are the kinds of things that you want people to know, because see, those homes still exist.
Mm-hmm.
Those buildings still exist. And if you go into a cemetery and there's a plot that there's no name, but you see these bricks laid in a certain way, that means it's a slave's plot.
Yeah,
so
now
go
you
ahead.
see, that was one of the fascinating things when we first moved here about this city, was that it had so much history still physically visible, right? That you're able to do. I mean, back in early 2000s, it was just the MLK Center, and you can do the Martin Luther King Jr. tour, and you go to his house, and you go to Ebenezer Baptist Church. But now you have the museum, you have MLK, you have the fire station. I mean, there's so much to do that's still, like, we've preserved so much of that history that for us being raised here, some of us take it for advantage that is still there.
If you want to see a very authentic Black history experience in Savannah, there is the Black History Tour by a man named Johnny Brown. You can find him and see his tour. It is fun. He does an excellent job of telling you the little known facts about Africans, enslaved Africans in Savannah. Winona said that she was a teacher at Wheeler, and she used to talk about the braiding patterns of African women and when she studied in her geometry class. That's awesome. Thank you so much for teaching. I mean, like, people need to know there's so much about our culture that they do and don't know why they do what they do. I just want people to know why you do what you do.
Okay, I got another question for you.
Go. Okay, let's go.
Okay, so hey, you're an educator. You get 28 every year. You get 28 days, maybe 6 classes to teach Black history. What do you try to cover every year in 6 classes?
Okay, so that's the point, right? So you're trying to, that's the reason why you try to find the most obscure or those little known facts. I don't want to talk about Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, or maybe I want to talk about the fact that, okay, so if I'm going to talk about Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, I'm going to talk about the fact that they were secretly meeting with each other and that they were on the verge of actually merging their ideas, that they were actually having conversations where Martin Luther King was realizing that if he was going to make gains with unions, that he was going to have to be a little bit more forceful. And Malcolm X was realizing that his alliance with the Nation of Islam was not everything it was cracked up to be. So that's where I want to talk. That's what I'm going to want to do. So those are the things I'm going to bring up. I'm going to talk about maybe if I was teaching right now, I would most definitely be highlighting African American women in the different eras of movements, not especially today, but I would go back, like women in abolitionism, women during the Underground Railroad, Reconstruction, the Jim Crow era, the Progressive era, every era I could think of, I would be trying to talk about how women have always been the undergirding factor. I might want to talk now. Okay, you know what I really want to do?
Yep.
I would want to merge Black love and Black history. And I would say, let's talk about this Willie Lynch letter. Let's talk about it. Let's put it on the table. Let's knock it out.
Ooh,
that's what I would want to do. Yeah, that's what I want to knock out. Let's talk about the reason why our families are destroyed, disjointed, why we Black women and Black men have a lack of trust and we can't get ourselves together. Let's unpack this letter. That's what I would want to do. Okay. What about you?
I don't know, but maybe we should do that next week.
I'm down.
Because that sounds fire. That sounds like a great conversation. If I was teaching, the big thing I'm interested in right now, which is it's a very acute factor, but I'm interested in creating the Black canon in terms of theater director. I want to really map out our legacy of how Black directors have created their own form and their own style of work, and see how it has evolved over the years. I dabbled in it a little bit in grad school last year. He allowed me to, because we were doing a course on all of the theater fathers, so all the theatrical individuals who had made their own theory at some point. And we didn't study any Black people, and I was like, not going to finish the class and not study any Black people. And so, of course, because he didn't have the language or the skills to do so, or the knowledge to put it together, or frankly, the time, as they say, I did it because it was something I was really interested in. So there's a lot there in terms of building that thing. But it's, for me in the theater industry, it's just so hard when people are, especially when we're growing up and training in it. We always ask, like, what should we be reading and who should we go to? But we don't have someone to always cling on to. It's gotten better. The playwrights have gotten better. Actors have gotten better. There's a lot more of them. But the theater directors, the ones who actually have the vision behind the stuff, those are the ones that I really want to put some focus on.
Since you brought that up, I just want to engage the audience a little bit. So those of you, guys listening, I'm interested to hear, what are some Black films, it could be plays and or films, that you think is a must see? Like, if you're African American, your children, you must experience this as a part of your life at some point. It's like if you're Muslim, you got to go to Mecca. So if you're African American, what are some films, plays, or that are must see in your lifetime? So I want to put that in the chat for us as we continue.
Roots is on the list.
Okay.
You guys said Roots.
So Roots, Winona said 13.
Ooh,
Winona said Roots.
And Roots. You gotta watch Roots. And I'll say you gotta watch both versions of Roots, the traditional and the one they remade a couple of years ago. I surprisingly will probably add a lot of contemporary things onto that list, only because there's so much more information that we have now, rather than what we had back then. And I say back then as if things are different, but they're not. All the stories are the same. You got a list?
I mean, okay, so like for me, I think that there's some, I'm going to say, like, obviously, you have all of the different 90s movies, but I think that you need to see Lady Sings the Blues. I think Mahogany, obviously Roots. I think you should read Roots. I definitely think that Malcolm X is one of those. I think that I'm going to even more contemporary. Let's go with The Butler. I think that The Butler does a great job of
Yes, Mountaintop.
Yes, I mean, let's see, Raisin in the Sun, obviously, right? I mean, that's like the baseline, right?
Okay, I'm gonna give you one. There's a play called Fireflies. It's a rather new play written by Don J.R. Love. It's a two-person show about a preacher in the 50s. It's about a preacher who goes out and does eulogies for all of the Black men and women and boys that are being murdered at that time. And his wife is a stay-at-home wife. She recently has become pregnant. But the secret to the story is that she writes all of his speeches. And so she's his writer. She's his ghostwriter. She stays at home. She's secretly in love with a woman that she met once that was killed because the woman is gay. And the man has been cheating on his wife. The preacher has been cheating on his wife as he goes out every year. So when I talk about, like, for me, I go, that's why I want to watch that. Let's combine history with being human, right?
Right.
Yes, you were doing great work. Yes, you had a great cause, but also you were flawed as all get up.
I'll get out. Before we get into, because Princess did One Night in Miami, and I know you want to talk about that. So she also did Mountaintop. I'm going to say, let me say, because of our matriarch, Cicely Tyson passing, you must see is Miss Jane Pittman. Now, if you didn't read that book in 8th grade, then, but it is a must-see movie. Listen, y'all. I thought Cicely Tyson was Harriet Tubman. I mean, like I thought Cicely Tyson was Miss Jane Pittman. I thought that was her own life story. You couldn't tell me that woman was a supermodel and all these other things in the 70s. No, she's not. That's the Harriet Tubman.
No, she was just amazing.
She was an amazing actress. So I think that I'm gonna. So those in the movies that I mentioned are even before my time. I think that is imperative for you to go back and watch those things. I'm gonna say you need to see Birth of a Nation.
Oh, yes, you do.
Both versions.
Both versions. I was gonna say both versions, and have a conversation about that.
I remember my professor showed. I took a cinema class, and he just broke out with Birth of a Nation, the original. Didn't give any precursor. Didn't give any warning. Just started the film. People started getting up and walking out.
You know, they still play that. For some reason, that is the centerpiece or the beginning of cinematography. Is that movie?
Well, that's because it was the first motion picture. So that was the first picture with that was the first talkie, and Gone with the Wind was the first motion picture with color. So that's why those two pictures. I'm not.
That's why
listen.
They two of my least favorite. I said it. Boom.
I didn't say that they.
We never said you were gonna like any of them either.
Right. I just said that was what their significance are. Okay. So now
I got one more movie.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Ruby Bridges.
Okay.
Story of Ruby Bridges. I just got to add that one in there.
Yeah, I think that let's make sure we. I know when Winona said "Eyes on the Prize," all of those, Mountaintop, Malcolm X, and I think that these are things as parents. For my younger generation, my millennials, as parents, there are some things that you need to make sure that your children glean from, regardless of it being entertaining. It doesn't have to be Nickelodeon. It doesn't have to be Disney. It doesn't have to be humorous. There are some things that they just need in them. Right? And those are some films that they just need in them. I think that there's no person that should not know no African American should not know what Roots is, Eyes on the Prize, Malcolm X Story, Miss Jane. Like those are things that they should know. And if you have the opportunity, you really must go to the African American Historical Museum of the Smithsonian. You must go because the entire bottom floor is pre-slavery. And I wept there for hours. All of the history and everything about us before these U.S. history books. You know, that's why I keep saying is Black history, even American history, because they just want to say we popped up as slaves. No, we did not. And the museum does an impeccable job of telling the story.
I don't think that I don't think that U.S. history is Black history. I think Black history is U.S. history. But I also think they don't. They still don't want to share it the way that it is true. What up, Kiji? You know,
hey, Kiji.
Well, let's see what you got. She got a whole speech. All right, here we go. Birth of the Nation and Gone with the Wind will always be available because it's evidence of racism in the film industry and racist stereotypes examples. Learning points, not entertainment. Come on with it, Queen.
Yeah, one of the things that I learned was that when they put the light on one person and put the other person in the shadow was so that they could show that one person was significant and the other one wasn't, that they would put, especially back in those times, Gone with the Wind, they would put baby powder on the white actor and Vaseline on the Black actor. That's why they always looked sinister and greasy and grimy, where the other one looked angelic. Even the cinematography of filming up one person from the bottom up and another one down. Those are the little things we learned in the history of cinematography. You didn't know I knew those things, did you? So you didn't know. Sister was versed in some things.
So let me ask
stuff.
I got see if I can say one more time. Okay, you ready? So, so the third part to this conversation for me is then talk about. So one of them things that we don't talk about. I want to go first on this because my big thing every Black History Month is we are always talking about icons, legends, and heroes. And I believe they are icons. I believe they are legends. I believe they are heroes. But we always leave out the word human.
Yeah.
And because we leave out the word human, we never are talking about their flaws. We're never talking about their day-to-day struggle that they may have gone through. We're never talking about their love or the struggles that they had coming up. And so I'm segueing into this great movie that premiered a couple of weeks ago called.
Before you do, I just wanted Tony mentioned my favorite movie that I watch every year on purpose, Imitation of Life. It's my favorite movie.
Oh, beautiful movie. For sure. Okay. Hold on. Let's get Kiji in there too. I learned that when white people were trying to change labels and delete films from certain platforms over the summer. Oh, okay. Yeah, you always studying something. You a genius over there.
Okay, let's go to your movie.
I want to talk about real quick, and spoiler alert, I'm going to talk about some details. One Night in Miami, which the great Regina King directed. It's a beautiful film. It takes place over one night. It is not a true story, which is beautiful, right? Some of the things were historically based, but most of that dialogue flowed for the movie's sake. Here's my big takeaway from the movie that I appreciated the most was that Malcolm X came off so arrogant. So often when we're looking at Malcolm X or you see a piece of Malcolm X, I mean, even in the Denzel Washington version with Malcolm X, right? He was so focused on, they were always so focused on his mission and his goals, right? What he was doing for social justice, what he was doing with the nation, his process through the nation. They will always talk about, when his house got bombed, him always having to talk to his wife on the phone, and it was always being recorded, and you could hear the recordings, right? So much of what was also talked about in his autobiography. But we now talk about how flawed this man was, right? And also how maybe this man wasn't someone, especially for me as an artist, that I might have wanted to hang out with on the day-to-day. There's this great conversation that takes place in the movie in which he calls out Sammy for making music about love and not about social justice or social change, right? And Sammy calls him out and he says, okay, well, the three of us are superstars and you're a broke man who goes across the nation and does speeches and tells the white people that you hate them. So who's in the wrong right now? Like, I belong here. I did the work to be here. Why are you here? And for me, I was like, this is so eye-opening. It's very true. It's also very true. But the thing that I got out of it was to also say this. Why are we always fighting each other? Like, we couldn't, even at that time, the underlining argument that you always had was Cassius Clay just won his championship. He deserved to celebrate. He deserved to have a night of freedom. He did the thing that no one thought he could do. And Malcolm X said, we're not going to get you. We're not going to do anything sinful. We ain't going to have no women. We ain't going to have no liquor. We ain't going to have no food. We ain't going to have no drugs. We ain't going to have no music. We're going to just have educated conversations. And the idea that we continue to drain ourselves on our own struggle, but then within ourselves never give us our opportunity to enjoy ourselves and the Black beauty that it is, man, it's so challenged. Let's see, which I got someone. So the characters in this film challenged each other. Oh, 100%. 100%. They all did, which is great, right? But Malcolm is that big icon that we never talked about how flawed he is. How he was also jumping into crowds and he might have had a motive. It was beautiful. They depicted this version of the story that Cassius Clay was going to join the nation with Malcolm, but Malcolm was already on his way out of the nation. And so because he was headed out, he never had told Cassius yet. And so there's this tension of like, is he having him join just so that he has someone of a larger name to start his movement with? And we don't know. It's a great question. We all have motives in what we do. And then there was this other thing. which I thought was great. The idea of colorism within the Black community, man, him being the only light-skinned brother in that entire movie, right? And then being called out on it, saying, are you doing this to overcompensate how Black you actually are? How Black you actually think you are? Right. How Black you perceive other people to think you are? And what does that actually mean?
I mean, like, those are some actually very good points, right? I mean, so, right? I mean, like, today, networking, strategizing is not a negative thing. If Malcolm X knew he was about to try to make a move, who is going to make this move with me? What other names will help me make this move? We call that networking.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, to get him to join the Nation of Islam or to join with him in the Nation of Islam, is that really a sinister thing? Is it a bad thing? I understand how people will try to placate it, but to me, I can always see where people's strategies, why people have a strategy, and it's not necessarily a negative thing, right?
Right. It's the keeping the secret that makes it bad. It's the moment that it becomes a secret, or it's the moment that you have the idea and the thought and you haven't shared it with the other person that becomes questionable.
Yeah, that's true. Intentions, that's why you have to be on the up and you have to try to do things on the up and up. Because if you don't, then people can misconstrue it.
Yeah. And it's really crazy just to think about this idea of activists, right? Especially, and think about our social construct right now. Activists with celebrities, right? That's a big thing that still happens in our community. Social activists stay calling out celebrities for not doing enough for the community, for not sending enough money back into their community, or back into their home. Like that's always been a constant conversation.
And this is Sammy Davis Jr., right?
Yeah, and
he got a bad rap. You know, he constantly got a bad rap that he was not Black enough, right? That he identified as being Jewish or with the Jewish cult. Like he went through it. So the fact that he hung around with other people that were activists, I can only imagine the stress of just wanting to be like, I did the work to be here. I'm a performer.
It was Sam Cooke.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, it was Sam Cooke and
well, never mind. All of that I just said, just let that out.
No, because I'm going to actually verify it, because the other thing was Sam had his own label. The man owned a label in which he was getting, all of his artists were making residual checks off of music that white artists were playing.
Mm-hmm.
So he was doing the work that the economic work, right? Because that's the other thing.
Most definitely did. Yeah.
He was doing the economic work that many people weren't talking about, and that, Malcolm X couldn't do because that just wasn't where he was.
And not only did he own she said he owned his masters.
And he owned his masters. Yes, he did.
That's what he said. I did the work to be here.
He did the work. He deserved to be on the rooftop, right? And so it's just that those are the two things. So that's all I wanted to bring into today when we're talking about Black history. Is my thing is I just want to talk about Malcolm X. He's a great man. He did it all, but he's flawed as well. I think in the last decade we called Martin Luther King out a lot. We did Selma. There were tapings that came out. MLK is just as flawed as Malcolm X, but they are both icons. They are both legends. I respect them and honor them for all they do. But we should just talk about the human in them, because we could never none of us are going to be able to do the work they do. We don't talk about that part. That's what's going to make it easier.
So since we're talking about Malcolm and Martin,
yeah,
and we're talking about Black History Month, I want to bring up a concept that we don't talk about enough, and that is how we as a people have to not relegate our own self to 28 days in February. Like when someone tells you to buy Black, that should not be something that only comes up because there's a protest and one of our husbands, fathers, and sons has been murdered by the police, and now we're going to retaliate by saying buy Black. No, it is our responsibility. It is our collective consciousness. It is imperative to us as a people that we understand who we are and we educate ourselves about our own history. Like, I need people to understand. So I'm gonna go back to what we're supposed to talk about, but I need people to think about this for a second. That the economy of the United States, I watch, as because I'm an educator and I'm a district level educator, and one of the areas that fields that I am versed in is economics. So I get a lot of information from the Federal Reserve. Right now, the Federal Reserve is doing a series of trainings on racism in the American economy. Like, they have acknowledged the racism in the American economy. And so not only are they acknowledging it, but they're talking about what they are trying to do to end systematic racism and how it has affected African Americans in the United States. So that's one organization. But here's what the important part of that for you and I to understand, that the Federal Reserve, the American economic system, has studied you. They know that you like snow crab legs and shrimp.
Yep.
They know that you like hair weaves and frontals, and that you go get your hair did, and that you're gonna get your nails done
every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks. So they know that your hair is gonna be done and your nails are gonna be done, and they know that you want some seafood, and they know that cleaning supplies, because you got to keep a clean house, even if you live in the projects in a cinder block project. That it has to be clean. What am I saying? That the GDP of African Americans is something that is studied and is used. And so we contribute $1.7 trillion in GDP in the year 2019. That's the last statistics I can give. What are you trying to say, Wendy? I'm so glad you asked. That if we are a block like that economically, and we just prove that we are a voting block politically, it is time for us to pick our own head up out of the sand like an ostrich and get rid of ostrich syndrome and start moving collectively as a people, and not just celebrating ourselves in these 28 days that we call Black History Month. That is great that we do that, but we have got to celebrate ourselves and strategically promote, buy, spend, focus on ourselves as a people every day. You have got to, so the Black dollar, so the Jewish dollar spends, it exchanges hands 17 to 20 times within the Jewish community before it leaves the community. That means that when a person that is Jewish gets paid, that money that they make in their paycheck exchanges hands within their own community 17 to 20 times. Hispanics, 12 times. Whites, 15 times. African Americans, one time. One time. That means you are never spending your money in your own community. And then when somebody else comes in and begins to buy up your community and push your grandmother out, the businesses that have been there and held that community together out, and we don't know why, because we didn't invest in ourselves. We're investing in other things. We're investing in labels. We're investing in clothing. They know that we're going to put the clothing on. Tennis shoes. We drive the tennis shoe industry. We drive the liquor industry. If we didn't, they would not be paying rappers to talk about those things in their music, because they know the moment they bring it up, you're going to buy it. Yep. So my point being that it is time for us to get smarter about who we are. We celebrate the genius of us in February, right? Mm-hmm. All of these amazing people, but you're the genius. Your check from McDonald's, your check from Walmart, your check from Ubering, your check from being a mid-level manager at some firm. You're the genius. Use your money and your vote, just like we just proved that your vote counts. Vote with your dollars and be strategic. The one thing that we did, two things that we did that I'm going to say that we messed up on. Well, number one was desegregation. When we said separate but equal was unconstitutional, and we wanted equity and equality. We did not want to dismantle our own schools. Think about it. When we started busing our children to predominantly white schools, where did our Black teachers and principals go? Where did our Black counselors go? They didn't hire them. They didn't absorb them. They lost their jobs. And then
go into other fields.
Where did our Black cleaners go? Mechanics. Now you have some of those, but think about in Atlanta, Herndon's, that were a huge financial institution because that was the only place that African Americans could get loans or life insurance. So all of those things dwindled. Even Citizen Trust Bank, a Black-owned bank, struggling. It is time for us to realize John Hope Bryant, who is the chairman of Operation Hope, the largest nonprofit financial literacy program in the nation. He said, African Americans are not poor, we're broke. There is a difference. You have the resources, we're just using them ineffectively. It is time for us to rally around ourselves. So I say that about desegregation because we allowed someone else to come in and dismantle all of the things that we had in our own communities where we were taking care of ourselves. And the second thing that we did incorrectly that I'm just going to say it, is that we didn't listen to Louis Farrakhan when he tried to tell us. I understand. In the 1980s, when he was talking to us about economic empowerment, I understand all of the politics. I understand who played what part in Malcolm X's, but I understand all of those things. I'm not talking about that. I'm not getting into that. If you go back and you watch the Phil Donahue interview that he did with Louis Farrakhan in 1986, Louis Farrakhan might as well have been talking yesterday about how we needed to use our money to support ourselves. And we don't do that. I understand that there were some other things that happened and that the construct of him being whatever else politics, government, religion says. But I'm talking about when you talk about the financial institution of African Americans, who we are as a powerhouse, I hope that the Black history of today is us waking up in our consciousness of understanding what we really are. I hope that Stacey Abrams showed us who we were. As Black women said, people finally see who we are as a power. I hope we can figure out who we are as a power when it comes to economics. Could you imagine this? Could you imagine if every African American parent who has a son or a daughter in high school right now today that was about to was looking for a scholarship in athletics, just athletics. I won't even go into academics. No, let's do athletics and academics.
Okay.
Every single parent in the United States that was African American, that's a high school son or daughter that was looking to sign for an athletic or academic scholarship, said D1 schools, we're all going to HBCUs. Every last one. Could you imagine? What would that do to D1 football?
Yep.
What would that do to D1 basketball?
The sponsorships they will be able to get.
I'm just saying it would shift the entire narrative of the entire nation. Our genius matters.
Yep.
We need to stop giving it away.
And we saw that happening a little bit last year. There were a lot of students after the summer. There were a lot of seniors after the summer that decided they were going to HBCUs for that very reason. So we're gonna see how the change starts to occur now that they're doing that. Okay, Princess dipped on us. She was late for a Zoom, so she had to go. She said her hellos. You ready to get into our rants?
You go first. Yes.
Yes. All right. I'm going to Sugar Bear Chronicles today. Y'all, My Sugar Bear Chronicles gonna be it's gonna be a little bit of a movie review, but that is because I have been waiting an entire year to watch a movie. At the beginning of the pandemic, it was probably week 2, week 3. The entertainment industry had been shut down. There was nothing going on. Everybody was sitting down on their couches, doing Zooms after Zooms. And we got articles saying that Zendaya and her Euphoria director or writer got together and they filmed a piece in pandemic times. And a year later, almost a year later to that time, it has finally came out. It came out this past weekend. There have been a lot of people making statements or sharing their reviews on the piece of work, and I just want to talk about it a little bit because one, they decided to drop it on Black History Month, which just opens it up to a Black conversation. Because you can't just release something on Black History Month and think we're just gonna let you fly by not being at some point using that as your token. So because you dropped it, I'm gonna talk about it this way. I thought that it was absolutely beautiful that it was done in black and white. I thought the cinematography was excellent. There was a lot of patterns. There was a lot of angles. There was a lot of moments where they really took risk, and I think it paid off in the styles. It looked a little bit like a Spike Lee film at sometimes.
Yes.
So to that, I'll say it was gorgeous to watch. What I will say was, as a millennial, it was very triggering. Often I try to talk as vulnerable as I can be about love in the millennial times, and the conversations that were being had in this piece, they were just arguing the entire time. I mean, there was so much underlining information that they never talked about. It just felt like it just all got vomited in this piece. And so it was very triggering to hear these two people figuring out how to communicate with each other and how abusive their language was to each other. And sometimes how heartbreaking they would go in terms of like wanting to up each other. And so for that, it became a very hard thing to watch. The thing I want to talk most about from this piece is specifically to the 90s people. When we talk about children actors, teen actors, and adult actors, and those very few actors who get to transition from being a kid actor to a teen actor to an adult actor. And Zendaya had the privilege of being all three of those. And there's been a lot of conversations about the phrasing of Zendaya's playing an adult role finally. Is she even an adult? And I really want to push back on the idea of, is Zendaya even an adult in the question? And really talk about the idea of Zendaya chose finally to give us an adult role. And that was a role that we have been waiting for the last couple of years, because we knew Zendaya had crossed into her womanhood. Right? She at 18 decided to do her titled Disney show from 18 to 21. And so we knew after her KC Undercover show was done that it was only a matter of time before she really crossed into the adult market and started doing those types of work. Now, look, we can talk about Euphoria. Yes, there's a lot of adult content that happens in Euphoria, but Euphoria is a bunch of teenagers. We could talk about Marvel and Spider-Man, but again, she's playing a young adult, she's playing a teenager, not a young adult. She's playing a teenager. Finally, now playing an adult. And the conversation now is that she's playing an adult is now we get to actually critique, right, her in a way that we did not get to critique her before. Because when you're a teen actor, you give them the benefit of the doubt, right? You know, you're ethnic, which is great. You're funny. You're good looking. You have a lot of skills. You're developing your posture. You're training. Once you hit that adult film, finally it's like, okay, this is who you're telling us. You're claiming your ingenue role. You're going to claim what kind of person you're going to be. And in that, I say, like, you know, that's where I wasn't too impressed with the film. That is where I didn't get sold off and that I didn't go on an emotional roller coaster. I think the dialogue is great, right? I think visually it's great, but I was really rooting for Zendaya to like shoot me out of the park with it. But that's all to say this. It takes time to be an adult. Age doesn't just qualify us to be an adult.
Say that now.
Have to go through the experiences to be an adult. And we actually have to have those conversations, and we actually have to have those life experiences before sometimes we can portray them. I earlier this last year, I did Partners, which is very similar to Malcolm and Marie, and that it's a couple in one space having a lot of conversations that they never had before. The difference is those people playing those roles and those who wrote it actually went through it. I was really hoping for Zendaya to show us that she had gone through something, and that was the missing element to me. I think the gentleman playing Malcolm, Denzel's son, he was phenomenal. He played it. He played that role like it was just crazy. It was so theatrical. It was so filmed. It was excellent. But unfortunately, Zendaya didn't just sell me on it, and so I'm just gonna put it in there. We're not talking about her as an adult. We're talking about the experiences and if you can play those pieces, which I know, and I'm gonna shut up after this, which I know is really hard because the big question we always talk about as actors is, do you have to have the experience in order to play it? And my answer to that question is, if you're going to play an adult, you have to have adult experiences. If you're going to play a child, you have to have childish experiences. If you don't have the experiences, you have to go to those who have had it and had that conversation. Period, point blank. That's the director in me.
Well, and there it is.
I'm done.
So, to segue, there's no segue. It is what it is. It's hard to be an adult. And so then I will segue. My rant is going to be, as it always is, it's political. So as we have seen, the aftermath, the culmination, the pitifulness of the ending of the election and now moving into a new phase, we are in a new day. We have shifted. The atmosphere has shifted. Praise the Lord. And we are moving into a new direction. And as we close out this episode about Black history, I just really, really, really want to rant and admonish us as a people. Here we have Trump today is being impeached for the second time because this Negro is a fool. And, he has done things that are, impeachable, probably criminal, ludicrous. They are just ludicrous, the things that he has done. However, white men continue to support him. They continue to stand by him no matter what. And that is something that white folks do. They will stand together. You can knock something, like he said, he could go into the middle of the street and shoot somebody and get away with it. And he would, because they would, I don't care what the impeachment managers bring. I don't care what evidence they bring. I don't care what witnesses they bring. I don't care what. We all watched it happen. We all sat and watched it all happen. Those Republican senators are going to vote to acquit this man. Now, why am I saying that? Because here we came through this election and we had African-American men like Vernon Jones, Lil Wayne, and I don't know what Ice Cube was doing. I'm giving you the O'Shea, I'm really trying to give you the benefit of the doubt because you're just so fine. I just got to give you the benefit of the doubt, try to understand where you were coming from. I'm not quite sure. And then Kanye West.
Oh, hell with him.
Candace Owens.
Oh,
listen, I need for us to understand what it means to stick together. All of you people thinking you're going to go to the other side because you're trying to get some kind of financial gain, because you want some money, because you need, because you're trying to be fiscally conservative. That's right, Lori Ann, tell them with all the eyes. For those of you that listen to this podcast later, I need you to understand that every dramatic pause that you hear, that's me batting or rolling my eyes. You just have to do it for yourself in your own imagination. So listen, We can we just get a can you just take a page out of their book where they are going to stick together and they are going to get and then get why are y'all always got I pray that you get rid of this slave mentality where if it's not your idea, if it's not your plan, if your name is not on the billboard, if you are not the one that is the leader of it and the creator of it, that you cannot get with the program. We need to collectively rally around a program, an idea, a situation like we did for Raphael Warnock and say, I don't care about all the rest of that stuff. We are going to push this through. That's what it means to be that is what it means to be a force to be reckoned with. That's what it means to be a voting bloc. That's what it means to be an economic powerhouse. Those are the only ways, right? They have a crab in the barrel mentality. And we don't have time for that in this day and time. Listen, if I called your name, no, you can't come to the cookout. No, don't be calling Auntie so-and-so telling them to fix you a plate. No, you can't bring that salad, that potato salad with the raisins over here later. We don't want it. We're done. Like, if you cannot support us as a people, you cannot support a person that has clearly had racist agendas and talked about white supremacists being fine people, got up and said, we love you. And that's who you're going to support? Stay your butt over there. That is what I'm saying. It is time for Black people to understand that to get to, I hope in my prayer is that we realize that this election showed us that we must rally together. We don't have time. We don't have energy. We don't have the luxury to be factioned. You don't have the luxury to be 3 or 4 different political parties. We must be one thing. I know we're not monolithic. I understand that. We are not monolithic. I have all kinds of thoughts and ideology, but when it comes down to it, I'm going to vote with the majority of us because that is how we show that we have power, and now people will listen to us.
Period. Point blank on that.
Look, yeah, Lil Wayne, go get your hair done. How about
that? You ready to close out?
Yes, I am.
Hey fam, so we're back with our closeout, and we just want to know: is today's dream tomorrow's reality, or is tomorrow's dream today's reality?
Yeah, so put your answer in the chat, please. Like, so is today's dream tomorrow's reality, or is tomorrow's reality today's dream? Did I say it right?
Tomorrow's dream, today's reality.
Yeah. It's the face for me. Listen, I'm so sorry for those of you that don't watch the podcast but listen to it later. You're going to have to come up with your own dramatic facial expressions for the pauses because they are there.
All day long. This is all we do. Y'all, I'm going to go with today's dream is tomorrow's reality.
Okay, why? Well, no, I want to hear what you have to say about that. Go.
Oh,
you can, sir.
Because there's especially in Black History, I think especially in Black History Month, there's a lot of dreaming. It's a period of reflection, and in reflection, there is a constant state of visually seeing things and unsuppressing things and opening them up, and that allows you to start to imagine what could be and what will be. And so since you're in a place of that state of dream, we're always dreaming, and we're hoping for a new reality for tomorrow.
I'm gonna go with you. I'm gonna say today's dream is tomorrow's reality, because we are in a time, we are in a dispensation of time that we have never seen before. We have absolutely no idea. If you know anybody that is worth their weight in foresight, prophetic utterance, just knowledge, no one, we have no idea what is coming. So all we can do is be prepared and dream and know that tomorrow is coming. I have no idea what we are about to walk into. I'm hopeful. I'm grateful. I am I have an anticipation, but I have absolutely no idea what tomorrow holds. And that is an interesting place to be. Winona, we're answering the question: is today's dream tomorrow's reality, or is tomorrow's dream today's reality? So I guess nobody else has an answer for us today.
Yeah, they just like listening to us,
It's
which is
okay.
cool and all. I appreciate it too. I'm surprised that we ended up on the same one today. But that was fun. We're gonna do it again. We're gonna do this again next week. Because we're gonna be celebrating Black History. I think we need to have that class we talked about.
Yeah, so tune in next week as we talk about Black history and Black love at the same time. The Willie Lynch letter. Where are you suffering from Willie Lynch syndrome?
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us for our premiere episode of season 2 of the Mentor Mentee podcast. I'm your co-host, Amir Thomas.
And I'm Wendy Torres.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Bye.